Hey guys, Shanti Phillips here. Welcome to my September 18th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, if you enjoy these updates, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys thought of the titles I checked out in this update. Any titles coming up which you guys would like me to review. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Screen Factory line. This is one that I've always liked. A really cool, creepy movie. Not one that's talked about that much, or I feel like it's as known as other movies with like a similar kind of a vibe as like, Rosemary's Baby and that kind of a feel. And really weird stuff going on, like an apartment kind of complex thing. But this one is the Sentinel, and this is one that I always remembered seeing years back on VHS, back with Good Times. I used to always go to Kmart on Thanksgiving Day. I used to always remember seeing, because it was like the only time I ever went there, like the whole year was on Thanksgiving. But I used to always remember going in there and buying a whole bunch when I was a kid of cheap priced Good Times, because they licensed a whole ton of Universal movies, and I'm pretty sure this was a Universal film. Yes, and they licensed a ton of Universal movies to release on VHS, and this was one of those ones, and Halloween 3 and a number of different ones that I always remember getting, but the transfers on those were really weird and really dark, and sometimes they're like almost like TV kind of prints and everything. But now now the Sentinel is finally out in a great new transfer. Really good transfer in this movie too. But the movie's basically about this girl who is with her boyfriend, and she's living with him, and kind of gets to a place in her life when she's like, she wants to kind of prove to herself that she can actually live on her own. She's always been with somebody. She wants to just kind of show herself that she can do it. So she ends up deciding to look for her own place. She still is going to be with her boyfriend, still going to see him and everything, but she just wants her own place. She just wants to see what it's like, and just to see what it's like to actually be by herself. So she ends up looking around to try and find an apartment, one that she can afford as well, and she ends up coming across this one, really nice apartment, which is a really great space for a really low price, and of course, there's a reason why it's a low price. The place is very, very weird. She gets there and she starts to kind of meet the other tenants of the place. There's like this old blind priest upstairs. There's these two women downstairs. Burgess Meredith is playing this like kind of nice old man that you think is like a nice guy, but you don't know there might be something really weird about him. But then she starts to kind of talking to people around and saying like, oh, I've been meeting the tenants, and she's talking about the person that, the realtor, and she came by and says, how do you like the place? She's like, oh yeah, I've been meeting all the people around the place, and she's like, what are you talking about? There's only one tenant in this house, this apartment besides you, the old man upstairs, the old priest. So then it becomes a whole weird thing about her, like, starting to see weird things, and weird things start to happen to her, and her with her boyfriend are trying to kind of investigate the past of this building and trying to figure out what is going on and what the plan of this building is for her. It's a very, very creepy movie. The end of the movie, too, is amazing. The sequences and things like that happen in this. This is just a really, really cool, creepy, like I said, slightly lesser known movie than I think some of the other movies of similar kind of nature. But it has on here a commentary track with the writer and producer, auto commentary track with the director and one of the actresses, and new interviews with the assistant director on this one. But this is a really, really cool one. I definitely would recommend this one. The next one from Shout Factory, this is a Sundance Selects title, and this is The Duke of Burgundy. And this is kind of like, I guess you would kind of compare this sort of like the 50 Shades of Grey kind of thing, but it's very, for this kind of film, it's very, very tame. It's almost like, because it's got a whole lot of these kind of sex scenes and things like that, but it's very, very tame, PG-ish take on them. Because, it's not like a lot of nudity or any of that kind of thing. It's not that kind of a take on an erotic film, because it really is an erotic film, but just like really a tame one compared to like if you think about like the Zom and Kane ones and Wild Orchid and those kind of movies. It's not at all in that nature. But the movie's basically about this one woman who ends up hiring this woman to be her maid at her like kind of mansion. She brings the woman in, and it's kind of about her having this like controlling sexual relationship with the woman, and kind of making her like clean her underpants and clean things around the house, and it get that's essentially what it is, and it becomes all these kind of sexual things, and it's it's real. It's like a very slow movie too. It was an okay movie, really, really good cinematography, good everything too. There's some really cool sequences and stuff in it too, like with like a kaleidoscope too, with some of the scenes and stuff like that. But nothing that I would say was absolutely amazing. But it was a decent take on like an erotic film. Like I said, it's not what you think of, though, when you think of like the typical, like the levels that it goes to with things and stuff like that. But that's essentially what the movie is just it kind of continuously gets more and more with what's going on with the relationship and the controlling. And the one woman there kind of just came for this regular job, but she really starts to kind of like what's going on, and they kind of both become like obsessed with each other. But it has on here a commentary with the director, interview with the director, deleted scenes, and a short film on the movie. And the next one from Lionsgate is Love and Mercy, which is the biopic on, Beach Boys frontman Brian Wilson, the guy who pretty much wrote all the songs and basically was the sound of the Beach Boys. And it's pretty much about him, and when he was, it's played by, Paul Dano playing him when he was younger, and then John Cusack plays him when he's an adult in the 80s. And it's about him kind of when he's, there's like a whole side to him that I kind of heard things about in the past, but never kind of knew all of his problems and some of the mental illnesses and things like that he was going through with his life, and about kind of being taken advantage of too by the other members of the Beach Boys in many ways, because he was the one really doing everything, and they were kind of waiting for him to kind of get things going and getting more songs to them and getting the sounds. And he had all these kind of ideas about certain types of sounds he wanted to go for and different kind of things, and they always kind of wanted him to be doing the same. And in the 80s it shows him with his relationship with Elizabeth Banks, and kind of showing how there's something really weird in the 80s going on with him and Paul Giamatti, and Paul Giamatti's character is kind of his manager, and it's super controlling of him and not letting him go anywhere, and like telling him everything to do, and kind of like saying, oh, you can't do this, and you can't be around, the Elizabeth Banks character by yourself, and they're always following him around and lurking and, following him everywhere he goes. He had all kinds of stuff. They were totally medicating him and over-medicating him, and it was really a very sad story about what was going on with him, especially, in the 70s and 80s, and about his breakdown and how things got to the point that they did in the 80s. But it was a really, really well-made movie. I thought Paul Giamatti played a great kind of villainous manager in this. Like, he was a real person, but he was such a bad guy with what he was doing, with giving him all this medication and really not caring about him and just kind of wanting them his money. And it's just a really, really cool movie. But it has on here deleted scenes and then creating the look of the movie. But I would definitely recommend this one. Even if you don't know anything about the Beach Boys, I don't think you need to know much to actually be able to watch this movie and really like it. But I would highly recommend this one. And I thought, Paul Dano and both Paul Dano and John Cusack did a great job, playing the older and younger Brian Wilson. And the next one from Lionsgate as well is the Michael J. White film. And, he was from the movie Spawn and bunch of different movies, but I always think of him from Spawn and, Steve Austin or Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is Chain of Command. This is about Michael J. White, who basically has come back from the war. Right when he gets back, he finds out that something has happened to his brother. His brother was killed, and it's pretty much about him going and trying to figure out and get revenge on, who ended up killing his brother. But he starts to kind of discover that there's a whole bunch of things and like kind of conspiracies going on, and it all kinds of goes all the way up like the highest levels of like, Congress and all that kind of stuff. It's a little hard to explain it all, but it's basically they get wind that he's looking for, who killed his brother and what was going on, and Stone Cold Steve Austin's kind of brought in to kind of stop it and kind of go after him. So it's the kind of thing about them coming after him, and then him kind of figuring out that people that he thinks are on his side might not be on his side. And that's essentially what it is. There's been a lot of kind of movies like of a similar kind of nature, but I thought it was pretty well done. Like I like the lead acting, like I said, it was from Spawn, and Stone Cold I thought did a pretty good job too as playing the guy who was kind of coming after him and trying to get him. But that's essentially pretty much what the movie was. But I thought, though, it was not a bad movie for that kind of a movie. The next one from Disney, and I saw this one in theaters, really, really loved this movie a lot. Because, Into the Woods, I thought Into the Woods was okay. I just didn't love that movie as much as some other people did. This one, though, I really, really liked. This is one of my favorite live-action Disney movies in a while. This is Disney's Cinderella. And I don't even really think I kind of remembered this Cinderella, animated film, but was never my all-time favorite one. My favorite one was always like Pinocchio, and probably Snow White over Cinderella. But this story, this version of Cinderella, I thought was really, really good. And it's basically, though, just the story of Cinderella about, about what happens when her father ends up dying, and then she ends up because the father ends up with this new woman that's like the stepmother, who's like the wicked stepmother, and the father dies, and she's stuck with the stepmother, and the stepmother's two other kids, and they kind of are abusing her and making her kind of be their servants to them, and then about her out in the woods the one day who ends up meeting the guy that she doesn't know as the prince. But everyone pretty much knows the story of Cinderella. But I thought this was a really, really well done, take on the whole thing. And, it's one of those things people say I caught feelings to it. I did. I was really into this movie a lot. I don't know, like when it comes, like I said, when it comes to these kind of movies, if they're done right, I really, really like them a lot and like kind of obsessively like them. But if they're done wrong, I really dislike them. Like I said, Into the Woods had a couple cool sequences in it, but things about it were very annoying to me. Some of the singing in it, I don't know. Couldn't get behind that one that much. It was fine, but this I really, really liked. Has on here though the short film Frozen Fever, the theatrical short, which is like the continuation of the Frozen story. Fairy Tale Comes to Life. And then, a bunch of other featurettes on the film as well. But I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you're, a fan of Disney's live-action movies and, live-action fairy tale takes. I thought this was good. Maleficent was actually pretty good as well, but I definitely like this one a lot more. The next one from Sony is... this one I had not seen it since I actually saw this in theaters. And all of them have a feature on the Goosebumps movie with the cast, a couple of the cast members, the two guys from the movie, talking about the books. Like for each one of these movies, they talk about the book and like looking at it, and then like a little look at, like a behind the scenes featurette on the movies as well. But this one is Zathura. One of Josh Hutcherson's early movies, same with Kristen Stewart. Dax Shepard is in this movie as well. But it's basically very much like the other one I'm going to talk about in a second, Jumanji. And a lot of people say it's actually technically like a sequel to it. It is in a way because it's the same writer of the book. But Zathura is basically about these two brothers who discover this old game, which is like a kind of an old tin game with like rocket ships and things like that. The one brother ends up starting messing around with it, and then he ends up playing the game. Then the father's gone and the sister's there babysitting, played by Kristen Stewart. The house ends up going up into space, and then they kind of have to play this game out, the two brothers, to try and figure out how they're going to get back to Earth because they're all the way up in space. And, the kind of characters and robots that come in and the things that kind of happen. Then Dax Shepard's character is like a spaceman that comes in and kind of helps them with the game and kind of sits on and watches them. But this is a really, really fun movie. Like I said, they're very much a similar kind of vibe as Jumanji. I was happy to watch this again. Like I said, I had not watched it since 2005. And like when I saw this in theaters, had never seen it again. And, was not bored. And I thought that it held up pretty well, too. I said, though, that's the main stuff on here, but then it also has commentary with the director and featurettes as well. And this is Jon Favreau who directed this one as well. The next one is Jumanji, and like I said, all these have the Goosebumps with the cast talking about the books and their favorite parts and things like that. But this one was to me one of my favorite childhood movies. 95, I remember seeing this one in theaters. I can totally remember. I remember actually having the board game to this movie. I don't even know if I ever really played it. I always just kind of like to look at it. And when they made the board games of these things too, they were never as cool as they were in the movies, because this one, it was like this wooden thing, and it would be cool if they actually made like a Jumanji board game that was like really expensive and like replicated as close as they could to it, with the wood and all that kind of stuff. But this is basically about, just like with Zathura, a board game, and this magical game that when you play the game, things start happening. And in the beginning of the movie, it's a young Robin Williams and a young Bonnie Hunt's characters playing this game, and Robin Williams' character gets sucked into the game and basically put on a deserted island, and Bonnie Hunt's character runs out when this happens and gets all scared. And it's 28 years later, the kids that move into the new house, and one's played by Kristen Dunst, and they basically get into this house, start playing the game, and then they end up bringing Robin Williams' character back after all these years, and he's kind of at the house looking for his parents and things like that. It's real sad because he's like trying to figure out where they went. And of course, they have to continue this game. He has to go and find Bonnie Hunt's character and where she is to get her to continue the game, because the game was started 28 years ago, and they have to kind of continue it. And like monkeys come out of there, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. All kinds of floods. This is one of those movies that everybody knows, but just a really, really fun movie. Like, I've always been a fan of this movie. It has on here 2 episodes of Jumanji, the animated series, and a bunch of featurettes on the movie as well. But definitely worth the upgrade, too, because I don't remember if the episodes of Jumanji were on the original Blu-ray or not. And the other one, this one is the first time this one's come to Blu-ray. And this is The Indian in the Cupboard, which is another one that I remembered seeing in theaters. I think it was around the same time I saw Simple. It was actually the same time as Jumanji. I think it was also the same time Simple Wish came out. Because I distinctly remember seeing this at this theater. There was like, the mall was torn down like a couple of years later. So I always have like fond memories of the movies I saw in this. This was one of my favorite malls. It was torn down. You know me, I always love old malls and things like that. So I always have fond memories of this because I remember seeing that movie in that mall that was torn down. But this is, The Indian in the Cupboard. This is basically about this kid who ends up moving to this new house and finding this cupboard. And he ends up, basically finding out that the cupboard is like a magical cupboard, and anything that he puts inside of it will come to life. So he puts like one of his toys in there, he comes to life. So he has this little figurine of an Indian toy, which he ends up putting inside the cupboard. The cupboard, the toy ends up coming to life. It's kind of about him and his adventures with the Indian that he puts into the cupboard. And then, one of his friends ends up putting other toys in there, and kind of the whole thing gets worse and worse on what's happening. Another one of those sad movies as well. But all of these movies look great on Blu-ray as well. Just really fun childhood movies to me. Zathura wasn't a childhood movie, but Jumanji and Into the Cupboard were. But definitely worth picking up for sure. And the next one from Paramount, and this one I'm so excited has come out. This is my personal favorite of all time of all the Peanuts movies. Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown I've always loved, but this one is like just my personal favorite. And this is Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back. And this is basically about like the Charlie Brown gang all goes to Paris, to France, because like they get this pen pal letter. It's like an exchange student program, and they kind of go to this villa. And I won't lie, as a kid, this always freaked me out. Like, I used to always watch this on VHS as a kid. The stuff when they go to this like kind of villa for the pen pal exchange thing to stay in this house. Like, they always like had this kind of weird music, and they would always show the place, and there's all these scenes and stuff of like, Charlie Brown trying to get into the place. He's always knocking on the door, and they're not letting him in. He's like sleeping outside. Like, I don't know. It was just always, to me as a kid, it always creeped me out in a really, really bad way. But I don't know why it did, but it really, like, to me, like, was like one of the most scariest things I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why I saw it like that, but I always did. But it's just a great one about the Charlie Brown gang going to France, though, and like the kind of adventures and stuff that go on there. But definitely for kids, though. I mean, I don't think it's going to freak many kids out. It did to me, though. But like I said, I'm so glad this is finally out. This is taken forever. It was only ever on VHS. So there's nothing else of this. But it has on here the making of Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. And the next one from Warner Brothers is Entourage the movie. This one's a little hard for me to talk too much about this because I only ever have seen, selective episodes of the show, on HBO. It's one of those ones that, I think it went off a couple of years ago. I sporadically watched episodes here and there because there was some like that Pauly Shore was in and certain people that kind of had cameos and stuff like that in it that I wanted to see. This is essentially, though, picks up after the show ended about the characters getting back together again. Jerry Piven's character is now the head of a studio. He was like the agent, and it's about all kind of friends who are all in the Hollywood business and things like that and kind of like together. And this one, though, is all focuses quite a bit on the one character who's making his own movie, and Jerry Piven's character is kind of behind the thing, and they're having all kinds of things, and he doesn't want to show the movie to people, and he keeps on needing more money and continuously going over budget, and so all kinds of stuff. As usual, too, with this, lots of different cameos, a whole bunch of people pop up in this. Has on here, though, the cast getting back together, talking about how things have changed, some other featurettes from the movie, deleted scenes, and a gag reel. This is one of those things, though, I don't think to watch this, if you haven't seen the show at all, you won't understand aspects of it, but I think it's one of those things that it's really better if you've seen the show, because there's a lot of characters and stuff like that, things that they referenced in the past that would make it a lot easier, if you had actually really followed the show quite a bit. The next one, this is one I always remember. This came out years back. I have the old DVD of this one. They're a little hard to explain slightly, but this one is from Arrow Video. This is, a region-free one, but this is, the Arrow US title, but it's out in the UK as well. This is The Beast, and this is a pretty cool, weird movie, and it's basically about essentially about this like kind of set in like a Victorian kind of house, but essentially the main, gist of the movie is that there's this legend about this beast out in the woods that is out there, and it has a whole like big thing about what happens to the one woman out in the woods, and it's pretty graphic movie, not like a super graphic or anything like that, but one of those kind of things that I saw this when it first came out. I was way younger than I should have when I watched it when it first came out to DVD, and it's one of those things you always kind of remember because of the sequences are so weird in this. But it's also like in a Victorian, like 18th century, and the people who are living around in the mansion, they all have their own weird quirks to them. The one is in a room all the time with the bedpost. I'm not going to get too much into what's going on in it, but it's very weird stuff going on. But it has on here, the uncut version of the film, and a bunch of different the director's some of his commercials that he did in the 60s, and a commentary track on the film. But this is a really cool weird erotic movie. And the sequence at the end, that's what it's like everyone thinks of and remembers the movie for most, is what ends up happening with the beast in it. And the other one, this actually, it has the extended version of the movie, which has never been, I believe, released on DVD or Blu-ray. This is from Arrow as well, and this actually has the original segment of the beast, which ended up inspiring the movie, because he ended up making the movie, the short of it, and then decided not to put it in the movie, and then making the feature-length one to expand upon the story of this. This is basically 5 different erotic tales, and then it's kind of set in all different eras, like modern time, of these couple that are on the beach and end up getting stranded on the beach from the tide and what they end up doing there. One is like in Victorian time about this woman who ends up bathing in the blood of virgins to try and stay young. A whole bunch of different ones, but really well made stuff. And his director's movies always have great music. He also did the Strange Case of Dr. Osborne, that Arrow put out as well, or Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne, I believe that was the title. He directed that one as well. But this is great covers on these ones as well. But another really cool, weird, different erotic type film from the 70s. It has, a new high definition transfer on this. And like I said, you can watch the original one or the extended one that has the Beast, short that inspired the movie of the Beast. And a bunch of different features on this one as well. People talking about the movie and the director's other work. But I would definitely check out these ones. I'm loving all these Arrow releases too, and coming up soon, I can't wait to check out Eaten Alive is coming out. There's a ton of different stuff from them. And 2 other ones I have to show you guys from Arrow. These are UK releases. The one, though, Hard to Be a God, is a region free release. Zardoz is only a UK region B release. Zardoz is a really crazy, trippy movie. I talked about this a while back from the Twilight Time release. But it's like kind of this weird society, and it's, stars Sean Connery, and it's like really weird people in this thing, and they're all kind of like worshiping this masked god thing, and Sean Connery ends up going inside the mask thing, going to this other, where it takes him. It's kind of this land of all these kind of weird people, and kind of it's a whole lot of, it's a very trippy, weird film. It has on here too, like the reversible cover art, which is, the pretty cool other cover for this one that I liked of this one. It's like I said, it's a super trippy, weird movie. And like here's like some look at the creatures in this, like these weird masks that everybody's wearing in this, and they're riding around in horses. It's a very strange movie. But I like it though. It's like I always love these kind of odd, different ones on here. It has a new 4K transfer on this, auto commentary with writer-producer and some of the actors. Newly filmed appreciation with the director, theatrical trailers. But this is a pretty cool weird one. Like I said though, this is a Region B release from Arrow. Another one too, Hard to Be a God. A cool like science fiction one, going to this planet where everybody is like these astronauts go to this planet where everybody's kind of stuck back in the medieval era, and it's a pretty cool concept to a movie. Here's a little look though inside some of the pictures and things like that for it. All in black and white. It's a Russian film, but pretty cool. Just a little look inside of this one. Had never heard much of this one before in the past, and it also has reversible artwork as well for that one as well. But this one is Hard to Be a God. The next one from Called Epics, and this one I heard a lot of people talk about this one and how good this one was, and I have to admit this one was absolutely amazing, and one of these movies that I don't know how I had never seen, but it also a movie too that is I can tell, a lot of movies have ripped this movie off, and I'm not even talking that much too about how amazing the cinematography is in this movie. It definitely inspired, like with Maniac remake, what they did with kind of the perspective of him. It's not the same like with this. In this one though, the killer, it basically is like early steady cam, but done in like a different kind of technique where it's kind of like following, like they strapped the camera to him. Like even Requiem for a Dream kind of emulated this kind of shot. Like when he's walking, the camera's kind of strapped to him. When he's walking like outside and going down the streets, the camera's kind of held up on a pole above him, and someone's walking with him, to get this amazing shots of him. But it's basically about this guy who's been in and out of jail. It has a prologue on here you can watch. Kind of didn't. I wouldn't recommend watching the prologue, to be honest, because it kind of spoils some things that you're going to find out later through the movie. So don't watch the prologue. Maybe look at that later, because it kind of it told you a couple things earlier than you needed to know. If you've seen the movie already, I would say watch that prologue. But he's basically, though, this crazy guy who's been in and out of the jail, and he ends up getting out again. And second he gets out, he's like, having this inner monologue, talking to himself, going, "I've got to find new people to kill," and he basically is going and searching around to try and find people, and this is all what happens in the span of a day. He ends up, seeing these two girls at a restaurant, and eventually kind of wanders into this kind of house out in the middle of the woods, country kind of woods, and basically breaks inside and kind of waits in there for the people to get there. And it's basically about him kind of hiding in there, killing them, and what he ends up doing and what ends up happening. But it's just filmed so amazing, and the techniques, and about him, what he's doing, and trying to have his plans and always planning things out. It was such a cool, weird movie that I don't know how. It's one of those movies that you don't hear more people talk about because it is so well done. But it has on here a new high definition transfer on this. You can play it, like I said, without the prologue. But the prologue was cool. There was a really creepy aspect to it. But like I said, I thought it gave a little too much ahead of time that you maybe don't want to know about the character and what some of the things he did in the past until a little later on. But it has on here, interview with the director, audio commentary, and a 40-page booklet with the movie. But definitely pick this one up, guys, if you want to see like a really good like home invasion movie that definitely inspired a whole lot of different ones. Really loved the Cult Epic stuff, and there's one on there too. There's a trailer. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it looks like a really cool one, and hopefully it comes to Blu-ray soon as well. The next one from Warner Brothers is Jane the Virgin, the complete first season. This is a show, too, that really has done really well with the ratings. I believe it's coming back for a second season soon, and it's a pretty fun show. One of those ones, too, that I've only saw, recently just started watching this. But it's basically, though, about this girl who comes from a very religious background. She's with her boyfriend. They're kind of waiting for marriage to, sleep together. She ends up going to the doctors for like a routine visit, and there's a mix-up, and she ends up becoming artificially inseminated and ends up becoming pregnant. And it's kind of about her trying to figure out if she's going to keep the baby, and what she's going to do, and because of the religious background, what she's going to decide to do about it. And the baby, the father of the baby, is actually the person that she works with, her boss. So it's like a whole load of troubles and all kinds of stuff, and her trying to figure out what she's going to do, and all kinds of different issues and things like that coming together. But it has on here 2 featurettes on the film, unaired scenes, and a gag reel. This is a pretty fun show too. I love the main actress too, who plays Jane in this. But this is a pretty good show though. The next one from Warner Brothers, and this, I had never seen any episodes of this one. I didn't even know when it was on. I believe it's on the CW. I know they're going to be doing a feature of this in a year or two, with Ezra Miller, I believe, is going to be playing the Flash. And this is the Flash, the complete first season. And this is pretty cool. It's not as cool with like a look standpoint as Gotham, but still is a pretty cool show. I remember watching the original Flash. I don't know if I saw it when it was new, but there was like a TV show like in the 90s at one point, and I remember watching it like on Sci-Fi or something like that. I remember watching a couple episodes of that and kind of liking that. I cannot remember what years that was, but how long it went or anything, but I do remember watching that one. But this is basically, though, about this guy who ends up, getting struck by lightning because of this plant that, this nuclear kind of test facility where they're doing experiments and things like that. It ends up basically exploding, and then sending a lightning into him, and he ends up becoming the Flash. And it's about him and the scientists kind of doing experiments on him, and he has this ability to run really fast, and then other people who were struck become villains and things like that. But that's essentially what it is. But it has on here behind the scenes, a DC Night at Comic Con presentation talking about Gotham, The Flash, Arrow, deleted scenes and a gag reel. But this is a pretty cool series, though. Definitely interested in seeing too what they do with the second season of this one. Like I said, not as cool as Gotham, but still a very cool movie. The next one from Warner Brothers as well is iZombie. This is another one that's based on a DC Comics Vertigo book. I'd never heard of this one before, and I believe the second season of this one is coming back as well to, I think it's going to be on the CW. But this show is basically about this girl who's a medical student who ends up getting turned into a zombie, and she kind of changes everything in her life and doesn't know what she's going to do, calls off her engagement. Everything in her life kind of changes because she's kind of stuck in this weird state, and she ends up transferring down to the morgue, and she's basically down there basically so she can eat brains, but then she eats the brains, and it comes with the side effect of being able to kind of see thoughts and see like things that happen to people, like the brains that she's eating and things like that. But it's kind of a cool concept. I feel like there was some kind of a movie or something like that. I can't remember what it was that had like a similar kind of movie, like a similar kind of plot to this. But basically, though, she ends up teaming up with these guys that are kind of solving cases and things like that, the cops, and she's kind of trying to help them solve the cases with the knowledge that she has from eating these brains. But it's a pretty fun show, though, and it has on here the Comic-Con panel and deleted scenes on this one. The next one from Fox is Modern Family, the complete sixth season. This is another one of those shows where I've, sporadically watched it. I've seen it a couple times, too, when I'm at the gym. Mainly have been interested in this show because of, Ed O'Neill was when I, first started watching it, like a lot of the first season episodes because of, Married with Children. It's kind of like, was his big spin-off, big TV show that really hit off, because he had a whole bunch of other shows that he did after that never really hit off to the point of Married with Children. This show really has been a big hit and is still doing really well. I always love the episodes too when they go to like Disney and go like that. To me, like when it comes to like sitcom shows and stuff like that, like live studio audience shows, I always love when they actually go to locations and things like that on this. But it has on here a bunch of different episodes, like one of the new Halloween episodes, a Thanksgiving episode. It has on here some featurettes. But the show is basically about the kind of whole family together and the kind of ventures and stuff like that they go on. It's another one that, like I said, it's really, really hard to explain too much about it. It's just kind of a show, let you guys know that it's out, and if you guys are interested in checking this one out. But it has on here too deleted scenes as well. But it's a fun show. Like I said, it's not one too you have to have seen all the other ones. You can go into it and watch it and pick up on what's going on. The next one from Image is Rosamund Pike's new movie. She did this one right before she did Return to Sender. So a lot of people kind of compare it to this one. This is a Best Buy only exclusive Blu-ray. The best when this comes out, it's only going to be at Best Buy. And this is Return to Sender. Nick Nolte is in this movie. Shiloh Fernandez, is in the Evil Dead remake, and We Are Your Friends is in this movie. Nick Nolte was great, though, in that new movie, Walk in the Woods, which I had seen. Loved that movie. This is basically about this woman who's a nurse, and she ends up, planning this blind date, and she's basically getting ready to meet the person for the blind date. And the guy knocks on the door. Of course, the person is early. She's not really picking up and thinking anything weird of it. Of course, though, the guy ends up being, coming in and being very weird to her, and ends up basically raping her and then running off. And she basically becomes really messed up from the whole situation. She's got like a shake to her hand. She can't do any of her jobs, the nursing. She's having all kinds of issues going on because the person that was the blind date was not the Shiloh Fernandez character. That person came afterwards, but she basically though wants to kind of try and fix things up and figure out what she's going to do with her life. So she wants to end up actually meeting him again. So she starts to kind of go and see him at jail, and then that's when the whole thing kind of takes this whole different turn about what she does. And there's a whole big thing that's something that happens later in the movie too. I thought that it was relatively decent. Didn't play out super amazing, some of the stuff in it. Nick Nolte was great in this movie as her father, though. I really loved him in this movie. Like I said, this was right before Rosamund Pike did Gone Girl, but she kind of had a similar kind of character in this movie. But I did like this one, though, for the most part, but it wasn't, like, perfect in all areas, though. The next one from Severin Films, and this one has, was released under a couple different titles. The other one was Escape 2000. But, the director of this did Brian Tenchard Smith, who do one of my favorite movies, which is still not on Blu-ray, Dead End Drive-In, which hopefully down the line someone puts out. This is Turkey Shoot. Like I said, also has the title Escape 2000. And I thought I had never seen this before, but I believe that I did see that version, because that was, like, I believe, released from Anchor Bay years back. This is pretty much about, in the future, they've kind of put all the people they consider deviants, or like kind of that are not fitting in with everyone. They kind of put them into like these kind of almost like prison kind of camps, and it's kind of run by these sadistic, crazy people who, for sport, go on like kind of let the people out and go out hunting them. It kind of has like the vibe of like Surviving the Game, and it's Steve Railsback and the Melissa Hussey, who was from It and from Black Christmas, kind of them, and then kind of going after hunting them, and they kind of are trying to survive and things like that. But it has like that kind of feel of the like Italian kind of prison Nazi movie feel to this, but it was actually filmed in Australia. But like their kind of take on those kind of movies, which were really popular around this time, or even a little bit earlier. But it was pretty cool though. It has on here though a making of, a featurette with the actors in the film, Brian Tenchard Smith interview on here, extended interviews, audio commentary track, and the alternate title sequence for the other title of the movie. The next one, and this one I hadn't seen in a long time. This is a region-free release, so it's region A, B, and C, and this is from 88 Films, and soon they're going to be putting out, too, I can't wait, Slaughter University on Blu-ray, which I have, and that one's going to be a region-free release as well, I'm pretty sure on that. So I can't wait to see that one, how that looks on Blu-ray, and this is The Boogeyman, and they remade this one sort of in like 2005, I believe it was 2005. This is actually a pretty cool movie. Not, absolutely like amazing movie of all time, but I always kind of like this one. It's basically though in the beginning of the movie, you see like the one father the one guy with the mother ends up getting killed, and then he kind of ends up haunting the mirror, because like the one kid ends up killing the one brother, ends up killing the guy who's with the mother, and then he ends up kind of haunting the mirror, and then years later, people who kind of see this mirror that's kind of found again start getting possessed by it, and then going crazy and strangling people or killing people. That's essentially what it is. It's kind of like the whole thing going on, and the girl, daughter of the father who's in the mirror is going and kind of seeing him. There's all these creepy images and things like that. Like I said, I always thought this was a pretty cool movie, but it's not absolutely perfect or anything like that. But I always like this. Here's the other cover of this as well. But it has on here, though, a new transfer. And the transfer on this is a really pretty good transfer, I thought. All the 88 Films transfers are really pretty good. It has on here TV spots, trailer reel, Boogeyman trailer, and interview with the director. But I like this one a lot. Like I said, it's not amazing, but it's just a fun one. The next one from Wild Eye Releasing is, this was actually kind of interesting because I was interested in seeing Josh Peck, who was from Drake and Josh and Mean Creek and a bunch of different stuff, in like a Western movie. And this was actually filmed in, I believe it was Romania, and I was reading that it was filmed like when it was like negative 36 degrees or something like that, so you can tell everybody in this looks really frozen to death. And the one girl's like lips were real blue at one point, like it was like hypothermia kind of look to it, and it kind of gave it a weirder vibe too because everyone looks so freezing. And this is the movie called the Timber, and it's basically about these two brothers who are going to try and collect and find this killer that there's a bounty on in the Old West, but it's Old West, during like a snow area. So it's kind of different too, because like West movies, you always think of like these kind of movies more like usually during like real hot and things like that, but this is all them traipsing around to the snow and things like that, coming across different kind of characters, other type of people they're trying to talk to about trying to find this guy to collect the bounty on him. But I thought it was okay. Not like the greatest Western movie of all time or anything, but I thought, James Ransome, who was from the Sinister films, and Josh Peck were both pretty good in this movie, though. Like I said, though, I was mainly interested in seeing it for Josh Peck. The next one from, Image Entertainment, and I don't remember the first one of this that much, but it does. I believe it's not related though to the first one. But this is the Invoking 2. And I'm pretty sure I know I reviewed the first one. I'm pretty sure I remember liking it. I think it was people going to a house that was like haunted, and I couldn't remember. I was mixing that up, but there's two different ones that were kind of similar. But This one's basically an anthology film all about, kind of paranormal type things. There's different kinds of stories about people going to a lake house and what ends up happening to them there. The one that I thought was pretty cool, the story about this guy going with like a realtor kind of woman to look at this insane asylum location where something bad had happened, that he's kind of going there to try and film it, and like to film and show the footage and stuff like that to producers and things like that to see if they end up wanting to shoot there. Of course, they get there, and then there's like this kind of a woman that killed somebody there, and she's kind of haunting him, saying, "Give me back my baby," and things like that. It's like kind of like all these different kind of paranormal, creepy kind of stories. One of them, they was set like in a motel room, but I thought it was actually pretty cool. It was a whole bunch of different directors. They kind of put it all together, and they did a good job too, because it basically goes like Virginia. And then they said like the date and everything. Then it's the one story, then it's another different story. But that's essentially what it was. The next one from E1 is Lazarus Apocalypse, and you can actually get this one in stores at Walmart. And this is basically a story about this investigator who's sent in to investigate these insurance claims that are going on against these employees that are a cigarette factory, and he's kind of going around investigating them, and he's kind of meeting these people and talking to them. And then weirder things start happening, and people who are working there are kind of like getting really sick and having all these coughs and like kind of almost turning into like something is happening to them. But then all of a sudden he goes and totally missing, the guy who's investigating them, and then his wife is trying to go around and figure out what has happened to him. And there's something like real schemy things going on at the at the cigarette factory, and you can tell they're kind of trying to cover things up, and there's something weird going on. Of course, she's trying to figure out where her husband has gone to, and kind of retracing his steps and kind of talking to the people that she talked to. A bunch of different people too are in this movie. Stephen Joffrey's, Brooke Lewis, but Stephen Joffrey's, who was from Fright Night, and James Duvall has a part in this movie as well. I actually thought it was a pretty cool movie though. There's some pretty cool sequences in this, and it kind of goes from black and white to color at times, and like the color, a lot of times it goes to color when it's like the ultra kind of gory or like bloody sequences and stuff like that. But I thought this was a pretty cool one. Like I said too, you can get this one at Walmart. The next one, and I wanted to just talk to you about this for a minute. This is one of the ones that I have a little fun little cameo in this movie. This movie is called Scarred. This is from E1 as well, and I'm pretty certain this is going to be in Walmart's, but in the stores. But I'll check and make sure the day it comes out. But this movie is called Scarred, and the movie's basically though about a group of these models who are going out to the woods to go on and kind of do a photo shoot, and when they get out there, there's kind of this legend about this there's somebody out in the woods who's basically going out there killing them, and the one daughter of the people, who's the guy who's going and doing all the killing, is saying that she sees this guy, and they all don't want to believe him. Ari Lehman, who plays the first the first Friday the 13th movie, he's in this movie. It's just a really pretty cool throwback slasher film. Like I said, I'm in the movie, and they even put on the back, it says with a special appearance by, Sean C. Phillips. I don't know if you can see that or not. See if you can see that there. You can see right there. You can see my name on there. So I thought that was kind of cool. They put special appearance by Sean C. Phillips on that. So, like I said, definitely check this one out. And like I said, I believe it's going to be like September 29th. It's going to be in Walmart, as far as I've been told. And the last one from Time Life is the Don Rickles TV specials. And, this is basically just 2 TV specials of Don Rickles. But I've always been a fan of his comedy and stuff. Like, I remember I could have seen him recently. But, like, this was back before I lost the weight, so I was worried he was going to, like, pick jokes at me. Because, he always, like, says stuff to the audience and, like, says all kinds of crazy jokes and stuff like that. His jokes is definitely not PC compared to now, kind of like his jokes back then and stuff like that. But these are just really fun, these are uncut TV specials, his stand-up specials. And the next 2 are 2 documentaries from PBS, and this one is Gameplay, the story of video game revolution. It's a pretty cool video game documentary. It kind of starts with the very beginning, like the first game system, goes through them and kind of shows the kind of ones where you used to stick the stuff on the TV, like that paper that would go over the top of the TV, and you could play the game, and kind of like that was one of the earliest ones, and showing like Pong, where you could have that in your house, and kind of like showing as things progressed, and kind of the lawsuits and things like that happened, and how at one point like everybody was making their own game systems, like even like cereal companies, like oatmeal companies, like everybody was making video games. And they even talk a little bit about E.T. and how those games ended up in the landfill. But a cool video game, especially if you're into video games, it's a cool one looking back at the past and how it started. And the next one from PBS as well is Showrunners, and this is basically a a documentary about, talking to people like J.J. Abrams and Joss Whedon, and talking to them about, the people who are like the head of shows and TV shows, like I talk like something like Bones, Lost, Sons of Anarchy, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a lot of the new shows as well, kind of showing them how they plan the shows, what you have to do to be a showrunner, and kind of all the kind of things you go through to kind of put a whole show together, and that kind of ups and downs, and talking about some of the things that have failed and all that kind of stuff. But if you're interested too in like, a lot of new TV shows and things like that, and seeing what goes on behind the scenes of putting it together, this is a pretty cool one. But anyway though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray collection update, and I'll see you guys later.